Yeah, I think that the ideal thing would be to get another rim runner. And this is why, and I wrote this and I don't know, I can't remember if I said it on the last episode. Against the Thunder, and I tweeted it out, I was shocked that we didn't see any Nemi. Positionally, defensively, I think he would have been a target on every possession because you can really exploit him. But in terms of size, physicality, and having a genuine rim runner on the floor, he's the Celtics' best option. And I think if you'd gone double big in that way and had Nemi running the floor a bit, maybe you could have got behind the defense physically and kind of bullied your way to the rim a bit more. So I was shocked there. But I think that's the only difference in the Cavs double big versus Boston's double big is the Cavs have Jarrett Allen that is a genuine rim runner. He's going to block a shot, get down the floor, get the lob and finish. And Celtics don't really have that. They have a lot of finesse bigs that are going to screen and pop, sit in the weak side slot, initiate DHOs. They're going to screen and fade. You don't really have anyone outside of Nemi that's just going to sprint the floor, wait for the lob and dunk it. That's like the Rob Williams role. That, to me, is the secret sauce to be in that Thunder team while Chet's out. The Cavs have that. Boston don't.
Even with Chet, I just don't think that the Thunder will be able to do the things that they do against a double big lineup, because I really don't think that they'll be able to have the perimeter defense with both Chet and Hartenstein on the court at the same time. I think they would be better going small. So, and then that opens up other things, other weaknesses you can attack. I think the Celtics are perfectly built as is to match up with the Thunder. It's just they can't have 5 of their best 7 players go 0 for in a half.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely diabolical, dude. Absolutely diabolical. Again, I do think maybe if you see some Nemi in that rotation, offensively, it'll be good. Obviously, you get defensive drawbacks. I like the big rotation that Boston have got. Obviously, it's Horford, I've never got a bad word to say about Horford. Never got a bad word to say about Luke, Porzingis. I just think that sometimes you need a rim runner, and sometimes that rim runner needs to be decent on defense too. And Nemi can protect the rim, but if you pull him out on the perimeter, you can get him in a blender a little bit. That's the only downside that's probably keeping him off the floor in games like against Oklahoma, a game against a team like Sacramento on Friday that play at pace. I haven't seen the Kings play since Mike Brown got fired, but I'm going to assume they're going to continue to push the pace because you've got De'Aaron Fox, you've got the Sabonis Fox DHO threat on the wing, you've got DeRozan that can cut in, catch and shoot off the middle. It makes sense to play at a decently high tempo at least. In games like that, I feel like a rim runner just gives you a dimension to help counteract that speed.
And we saw against Denver the reason why Nemi doesn't play. He was absolutely a disaster on defense against that smaller, quicker lineup.
And this is what I'm saying. That's the downside, and this is where I understand why he's not in there. But then maybe you need to find a way. Not this season. I'm not calling for a trade by any means, but you need to find a way to find an upgrade at that rim running role, because it can become a serious weapon against certain teams. It won't always be needed. Whoever they pick up or whoever plays that role will have a lot of DMP CDs. But when they do play, they're going to be maximized because it'll be against teams that really struggle to contain that sort of explosiveness up and down the floor. And, watch Jarrett Allen play against some teams. Sometimes he's just looks unguardable. Other times you're like, oh, he might as well not be on the floor. It just depends.
Yeah, that's I think it's so tough when you already are rostering 5 or 6 centers to even think about that at this point, but eventually it is going to come up.
Yeah, there's too many bigs on this roster already, and we spoke about this. Like, if you're going to bring a big in, someone's got to go. Tillman hasn't worked out, so I'm not going to miss Tillman by any stretch. But I think that there's still a lot of upside on Nemi. I know a lot of people are high on him, and I don't know how we've got into this too much. I'm sorry I took us off track. But Nemi, he's got a lot of upside as a contending team. If you need a rim runner, he's probably not the guy for you right now. He'd be better suited going to a Detroit or any other rebuilding team, Toronto, whatever, where he's just going to get force-fed minutes and can be allowed to make those mistakes. Whereas in the Celtics rotation, you make those mistakes and they seem so much bigger because those mistakes don't happen as much, and they mean more because you're fighting for first seed, you're fighting for a little bit of a mental advantage over a team like Oklahoma or a team like Denver. You want that mental advantage, so if you face them in the postseason, well, now we beat you twice during the regular season. Like, that's kind of the mentality you want to bring into these games. you can't trust Nimi, and that's a problem when his skill set is necessary against some of these teams.
Yeah, whenever you defend by fouling, that's always going to be a red flag for me for a big. He cannot help himself and he gets caught up and he leaves his feet, and that's just, you're just leaving yourself exposed with when he's on the floor against smaller, quicker guys, because they're gonna switch and he's gonna get attacked.
The problem is, like, that was a Rob issue too for a while. Rob used to be so easy to get off his feet. Once he figured out how to stay down, how to like pressure the ball without coming up in the air, then that's when we started to see like Roma Rob and rotational Rob, and you were like, dude, this guy's got DPOY upside. Obviously, health was always the biggest factor with Rob. Nimi can get there, but like I say, these mistakes when playing for a Celtics team, trying to really set the tone and make a point, they just feel so much bigger than what they actually are. And obviously, the coaching staff do a good job of taking things game by game. But yeah, for me, a rim run is important in that rotation. And I'm not saying bring one in without sending a guy out, but long term, it makes sense to add a rim runner that's not Nimi.
Yeah, I think every team in the league would agree with that, because even the Cavs tonight, they had to basically like set their lineups where it was almost always Allen and Mobley on the floor at the same time, and then they just did that whenever Hardenstein sat. Those guys rested.
Yeah, because you just need it sometimes, and you know it is what it is. Talking of which, they're going to be up. I mentioned a minute ago they're going to be up against Sacramento. Anyone you're worried about there? Like, do you feel De'Aaron Fox is the type of speedy, shifty guard that's going to give Drew and Derek some issues? Who are you worried about in that rotation? I really like Sabonis personally.
The Ellis kid, he's actually getting playing time and he's on
Keon
fire
Ellis.
from three. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he probably should have been playing the whole time. Maybe Mike Brown would still have a job if he was, but he's just been on a heater lately from three. So that always scares me, because if a team gets hot from three, that's pretty much the only way you could beat the Celtics. As long as they're not beating themselves, like with the turnovers, low assists, etc. But you win the 3-point battle, you got a shot.
Yeah, I think so. How can I put this? I think that the Kings have got a lot of good young pieces together. I wouldn't have fired Mike Brown. I think that was a big mistake. He'd done so much for that franchise in the time he'd been there, broke their, 16-year playoff drought, developed them into a genuine like playoff contender. They have one rough patch to start the season, and it's like, right, we need to change coach. Clearly, to me, there was something more going on that no one's privy to. It can't have just been that, because that was just too much of a knee-jerk decision to me. But Keanu, this is good. Is it Trey Murphy? Am I thinking of the right guy?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I might be wrong. Anyway, I mean, I'm not. I don't. How much Kings are we really watching? Let's be honest. You know what I mean? They've got. I think it's Trey Murphy. Great talent. Sabonis, great talent. Fox, great talent. DeRozan, solid, good talent. They're a threat, is what I'm saying. Is what I'm getting to. Do I think that they're going to win? No. Do I think they could? Maybe. The last thing I want, though, is for the Celtics to go 3-1 on the road and then come home and drop their first game back at home. Like, that's always like such a deflating feeling, especially for fan bases where you're like, dude, man, you can go and win 3 on the road out of 4. Don't come home and drop a deuce in the middle of the fucking court, dude.
Yeah, I do feel like they feel more pressure at home because the fans start to get anxious. And on the road, they're more free and they're like, hey, we can make a mistake without everybody starting to like get nervous, start looking over their shoulder. Because our fans, we love to panic. So I do get kind of like how our home court advantage can sometimes be a home court disadvantage. Philly has that problem. New York can have that problem when you have some really impatient fans.
Yeah, for sure. The problem is, I'm just like, yo, the Celtics organization do a great job of talking about take this game as one game. And I'd like to believe they approach it like that when I'm on the floor. But, you know, the vibe can get a little bit paranoid sometimes. And I get it. I do. But I just think coming off a road trip, getting that first win back on your home court, that means something. It'll be the first home game of 2025. So you want to start it off with a win there too, just to, you know, set the tone that way. I'm confident. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to win. I've actually predicted I wrote a predictions up early in January. They're already ahead of my win prediction. I had them split in that road trip 2-2. So they're already ahead of what I predicted. Hopefully they can prove me wrong and win more games than what I predicted them to. I do have them beating the Kings.
I'd hope so.
I'm very comfortable with that idea of them being.
Now, the next stretch of the Kings, the Pelicans, we have a nice little stretch before we do the LA trip.